What do you want to be? What weight do you want to have? What shape do you want to have? What size of clothing do you want to wear? However you want to describe it, describe what you do want as opposed to what you don't want. There's a few reasons with that. Remember, the unconscious mind can't focus on or can't process negatives. So if you keep saying, I don't want to be fat, it'll just be focusing on be fat. Also, if you do manage to get it to move you away from being fat, I'm going to tell you, being obese is not being fat. Technically, you've got being fat and then you've got being obese. You could become morbidly obese and have achieved your goal of not being fat. Not what you want. Unintended consequences. Always beware of unintended consequences. So make sure your goal is oriented towards what you do want. Make it positive, focused on what you do want, so you're always being drawn towards that goal. And then realize results and react realistically. Sometimes I'll just say reward because it's easier. But realizing the results and reacting realistically is a more comprehensive way of putting it. And this is a requirement once you've achieved your goal. And that is to take a moment to recognize and acknowledge that you have achieved the goal. Because so often in life, we go from goal to goal to goal, from thing to thing. We bust a gut, we achieve it, and we just move straight on to the next thing. We don't even acknowledge that we've achieved it. However, we then attempt something else, we make a mistake, and we spend ages dwelling on the fact we made a mistake. Oh, I am absolutely useless. I always get it wrong. Because we made one mistake, but we're focused and dwell on that mistake. And of course, the more you focus on something, the more you get of that thing. Again, we'll look at that in a moment. So once you've achieved your goal, realize that you've got the results. Yeah, I've got that. And react realistically. Kind of acknowledge it. Take a moment out to congratulate yourself for a job well done, to acknowledge it, and to celebrate and reward yourself for it. Make sure you reward yourself for achieving that goal, for nailing that resolution. Now, how might you reward yourself? Well, just pick something suitable that you could offer yourself as a reward for achieving that. Make it in line with the magnitude of the goal. So if it's a minor goal, you're not going to reward yourself with an all-expenses-paid luxury around-the-world cruise, for example. That's kind of a bit of a mismatch. On the other hand, if your goal is a massive goal, it's not really helpful if you reward yourself by having a nice cup of tea, for example. Make sure the reward kind of fits in with the amount of effort that goes into the goal, but make sure you do reward yourself. Oh, very important, make sure the reward is not actually part of the process of achieving the goal. Make sure it's not part of the process of achieving the goal. And if you don't achieve the goal, you don't get the reward. Use the reward to reward the effort, to help celebrate that you've got it. Because the more you do that, the more you're then going to start to notice all the other times when you succeed in achieving your goals, all the other times when you make success. All right? And of course, the more you realize that you're succeeding, the more you will succeed. So that's the goal creator criteria. Let's just spend a few moments talking about why these are so important. Because it's one thing to have a list of what seems to be arbitrary rules, but it's quite another when you get to kind of understand where all of this comes from. And this all comes from deeper studies in neurology and neuroscience, etc. You see, I've spoken a little bit about what we focus on. What we focus on is what we get. I mentioned that in terms of rewarding ourselves and all this sort of thing. There's so much going on in the world every waking second, and indeed every sleeping second. There is so much going on in the world. We cannot pay attention to absolutely everything. So we pay attention to specific things that we're kind of looking for, that we're focusing on. And it's like your search engine on your computer. You go to the search engine, type in something, that's what you're focusing on. You'll come up with lots and lots of results, lots of websites, web pages, all focused on that particular thing that you're focusing on. So you might, for example, focus on red cars. Let's say red sports cars. Type red sports cars into your search engine. You get lots and lots and lots and lots of pages about red sports cars. You're not going to get pages about SUVs. You're not going to get pages about horses. You're not going to get pages about the planets. Does that mean those other things don't exist? Of course not. You're going to get what you're searching for. And so it is with life itself. You get the sorts of things that you're focusing on, which is why it's so important for us to reward ourselves and celebrate when we achieve a goal. Because as I mentioned, very often we go through life, we achieve something, move to the next thing, achieve something, move to the next thing, make a mistake, dwell on it, focus on that mistake. We end up, the more we do that, the more we start looking for mistakes and looking for evidence that we screw up. And you know what? I hate to tell you, but every single one of us screw up every single day. We're constantly making mistakes, big mistakes, small mistakes, constantly doing that. So if we start looking for evidence that we make mistakes, we will find them because we make lots of mistakes. But if all we search for is the mistakes that we make, well, we're going to overlook the successes that we have. Like our search engine, if we search for mistakes, all it'll do is come up with mistakes. We're going to not see all the successes. We're going to assume we don't make success. We're going to believe that we constantly fail. We're going to believe we don't succeed. How is that going to help us to achieve things? However, if we start recognizing and taking moments out to recognize that we've achieved something and we have succeeded. Yeah, we made some mistakes and we succeeded. Even in spite of those mistakes, we overcame it and we succeeded. Ooh. The more we start to do that, the more we'll start to look for evidence that we do succeed. And we have had other successes. And there have been times we've made potentially a catastrophic mistake. And we have overcome that and still succeeded in spite of that mistake. And we start to find more and more examples of that. And we start to realize that we are capable of a lot more than we think we are. And we start to find more and more ways to believe in ourselves. More and more ways to achieve the things that we want to achieve. We set a goal and we realize, yeah, we made some mistakes, but you know what? We made mistakes in the past and we still achieved things. I've made some mistakes this time heading towards this goal. I will overcome those and achieve it as well. It's all about getting your mind focusing on the positive side of things. It's kind of like when you walk into a dark room and you've got a searchlight. It's only going to shine one particular part of the room. It's all about moving that round till you point to the part of the room that you want to be looking at. It's about getting your search engine to look for nice things, positive things, constructive things. That's about the reward. How does our unconscious mind, how does our mind filter down and focus on the things that we want to focus upon? Well, our senses are constantly being bombarded with huge amounts of information. Masses of information. It's been said it's something like 2 million bits of information are assaulting our senses constantly, every second. And our unconscious can receive and handle all of that, but our conscious mind can't. The conscious mind is the bit that we think with. It's the bit that we are aware with. It's the bit where our awareness is in. That's where our conscious is. So if you're aware of something, it's in your conscious. Our conscious can handle 7 plus or minus 2 chunks of information. Now, chunks of information, we can talk about that at another time. But basically, a piece of information. And 7 chunks works out at about 134 bits, something like that. So out of those 2 million bits of information, our conscious can only handle 130 of them, 130 bits. Which means there's a heck of a lot of filtering has to be done, right? Not a problem. Our unconscious can filter out all of this stuff to figure out what we want to focus on. But how does it know what to filter out? Because it's not always going to be filtering out the same stuff all the time. I mean, for example, right now, right here, right now, I'd just like you to focus for a moment on focus on the sound of my voice and focus on how you're hearing me and all the qualities of the voice, the timbre, the volume, all the lilt, the accent. Focus on all of the components of my voice so that you're giving your whole attention to my voice. Every bit of your conscious is focusing on my voice at the moment, which means all those 7 chunks of information that your conscious can hold are all focused around my voice, the sound of my voice, how you're hearing my voice, perhaps where the voice is coming from, all of those sorts of things, which means no part of your conscious is aware of the chair that you're sat on. Oh, well, it is now because your attention has shifted towards that. But it wasn't a few moments ago. See how this works? Our focus can shift from moment to moment, which means when our unconscious is filtering out all of this information and presenting our conscious with the little summary of what it wants to know about, it's got to choose on a moment-to-moment basis what to filter out, what to delete, what to generalize, what to distort. And we have a whole series of, you can call them filters if you like, which kind of shape everything that's coming through. And these filters, they're things like our beliefs, things that we believe to be true, our values, things that are important to us, our language. There's all manner of different filters that things go through. And part of that includes our focus, what it is that we want to focus on. Our unconscious knows what we want to focus on and ensures that we focus on that stuff accordingly. And the classic example, have you ever gone to a garage, bought a car, and all of a sudden, the road seems to be filled with that exact make, model, and colour of car? Huh. Did half the world suddenly decide to buy the same car that you've got that morning? Well, clearly they didn't. Clearly those cars were all there all along. It's just you didn't notice them because you weren't focused on those. It wasn't part of your focus. It wasn't important to you. So your unconscious just deleted that information, didn't pass that information through at all. But now that make, model, and color of car is relevant to you, so your unconscious will pass that information to your conscious. And that's where a lot of this stuff around the goal creator comes into play. It's all about getting your unconscious to focus on this goal. It knows this goal is something that is important to you. So when it's sifting through all of the 2 million bits of information that come in every second, it's sorting out for things which are relevant to this goal, amongst other things. So if your goal is a 5% pay rise, now say your goal is to achieve your ideal weight of 75 kilograms. Anything that's associated with weight, your unconscious is going to kind of flag up to your conscious. And it could be that you suddenly start seeing healthier options for food where you hadn't seen them before. Or you suddenly start becoming aware of just how much chocolate you actually eat. Or you become aware of, well, I could get that bus, or I could actually, I mean, the next stop isn't that far along, and it's I could walk to the next stop and get the bus from there instead. You become aware of these opportunities, you become aware of these different things because your unconscious is now kind of focusing on these things. But there's always a but, isn't there? There's always a but. But your unconscious, for reasons which we won't go into at this point because it is beyond our discussion here, but again, if it's something that's of interest, let me know. We can talk about it in a future episode. But for reasons that we won't go into now, your unconscious you can think of as a 7-year-old sibling who loves you dearly, wants to do everything they can for you, but they're only mentally 7 years old. Now, remember when I said the first part of the goal creator is to be clear and concise. When we make our goals clear and concise, we give our 7-year-old unconscious who loves us dearly and wants to do everything it can to help us. By making our goals clear and concise, we give it exactly what it needs. It knows exactly what it needs to do. If we make it vague and we ramble on for 4 sides of A4 about what